Hey everyone, I ran out of things to talk about, so now I only have one thing left for me to do. Bitch about some pixels!
The Nintendo Entertainment System, bringing you less pixels before less pixels were cool. A console destined to fail, but managing to survive, bringing a company from playing cards and easy-to-make toys to the video game market.
This little gray toaster managed to bring back the entirety of the video game industry after the Atari fiasco. And sure, maybe its graphics are a little less Super Mario and more dots and boxes, but hey, charm is in simplicity, am I right?
But before we start with this hopeful resurrection of gaming, we must first visit the downfall of gaming. Upon gaming being first introduced everywhere, every single company was immediately shooting their shot to get that free money. Just slap some pixels together, call it Bob, paint a box, make some enemies, and call the game Space Bob, and boom, you have a hit game that a bunch of middle schoolers are going to run and jam as many quarters as they can into the machine. It was an incredibly simple formula given the simplicity of games at the time.
After the success of arcade games and, well, the arcade, everyone went to experience video gaming in their own home. It may seem like a second thought now, but there once was a time where you couldn't just walk from your bed to your nearest game console, turn it on, grab a controller, and then play the new video game that's out. Instead, you had to rummage through your couch to find quarters just to shove into some annoying ass machine, so that way you could play for like 3 minutes. Or pray that your mom would be willing to spare 6 quarters so that way you and a couple of friends could head to the arcade at the mall and play Pong. But eventually we got the chance to play arcade games at home. Kinda.
The Magnavox Odyssey, the first video game console available for retail. With some incredibly simple graphics, the system let you play simple games on your TV, which was incredibly innovative at the time. This was huge for the industry. Now people could play video games at home, but it could be better. And that's where Atari comes in.
The Atari 2600, increasing the overall graphics in gaming by introducing colors and squares. Finally, no one was bound to a little white dot moving across the screen under an overlay that you put onto your TV. Instead, we had yellow dot versus his mortal enemy, blue dot. Of course, the novels, manuals, or movies that the games were made off of would flesh out the story a lot more. It'd basically tell you, alright kiddo, see, if the yellow dot hits the blue dot, you die. While some people will see this as a reason to use your imagination, I see it as a hallucination.
After the major success of the Atari 2600, many other consoles were released with the new graphics easily available that were on the Atari 2600. One of which was the return of the Magnavox Odyssey, and the Magnavox Odyssey Squared.
It looks like it got overtaken by 3rd grade math.
33 major console releases, including Atari's first true rival with the Intellivision, Game & Watch systems, the Commodore, the first Game TV, the ColecoVision, and the first ever handheld in the Microvision. So many games and consoles were released, especially for the Atari 2600. They all began blending together and were so basic and simple. Consumers got overwhelmed and confused, and simply just stopped buying games or consoles. This was known as the video game crash of 1983, or the Atari crash.
Gaming was at an all-time low. No one was buying games and the market was way too overstimulated. But one company known for their game cards and small handheld consoles known as the Game & Watch systems was about to introduce a console that would revolutionize gaming and revive the gaming market with the release of their first ever home console system.
Released in 1985 in North America, the Nintendo Entertainment System single-handedly revived a dying industry. Oh my god, Nintendo, you did it. This toaster looks amazing. Imagine how many pieces of toast I can make. Jokes aside, the NES was huge in the market. So many classic games have been released, and it had been released 3 years after the Atari, which was long after the video game crash and the controllers turning into remotes before that was even popular. The NES was an absolutely huge success, but not without its faults.
After the video game crash, retailers were very hesitant on putting out more video games onto their shelves. worried they might not sell due to market and consumer fatigue. So Nintendo did what they do best. They made a toy!
Rob, or the robotic operating buddy, was made to ease retailers' fears of the console. Nintendo introduced Rob as a way to market the NES less to a video game console and more as a toy that just so happened to play video games. Unfortunately, despite the uniqueness of Rob, only 2 games were made for him before he was phased out and NES sales climbed. But Nintendo had a new idea: giving kids guns.
The NES Zapper, a light gun originally made for Duck Hunt. While the original color was gray, Nintendo opted to change the color to the iconic orange after toy gun laws were revised. As a kid, I would have absolutely loved this. Unfortunately, I was too busy not being alive. But believe me, I would have loved to shoot some virtual ducks. Those fuckers know what they did.
And then there were the games. A great lineup, no doubt. Metroid, Mario, Kid Icarus, Zelda, Zelda 2, Tetris, Byte-Sized, Contra, Mega Man, Kirby, Dr. Mario, and Battletoads, as well as so many more. But the issue was with the cartridge. See, after using the cartridge so many times, the internal connectors began to become damaged and weren't able to connect the data between the NES and the game. So the obvious answer was to blow in them. Just imagine this: your child dies, the first thing you do is start blowing on them. That came out wrong, but you know what I mean.
See, in the NES, you'd think that it would stand for Nintendo Entertainment System. I, however, choose the name Nintendo Exercise System, like a prehistoric version of Wii Fit, but instead of doing yoga, you're instead performing the tilt and blow into the cartridges. Just imagine the ad campaign: Nintendo, bringing you closer to your TV than ever before. Because you have to keep removing the cartridge and blowing it.
Of course, I'd hate myself if I didn't mention the biggest failure of them all for the NES: the Power Glove. Where do I even start with this? Let's start with the movie. Yeah, there was a movie. The Wizard. Released in 1989, a film purely made to advertise the NES and the brand new Power Glove. But what was the Power Glove? Well, it was Nintendo's first try at motion controls. There were a few bars that you could connect to your TV that would track the Power Glove. On the glove, there were buttons that allowed you to control other aspects of the game you couldn't do with just motion controls. Honestly, this was so fucking cool. But sadly, the tech wasn't all there yet. But you can't blame Nintendo for trying. This was awesome, and I'd love to see it again someday.
Overall, the NES was amazing, bringing back the video game industry as well as introducing new gaming ideas. But the NES still had one thing left in store: a remaster of the original console.
The new style NES. After everyone complained about how much the controllers hurt their hand with the sharp corners and the easily worn down connectors, Nintendo re-released the console with a new top-loader design, where you could place the game from the top rather than putting it inside the system itself, like with the original NES. The connectors were far better and would last just a bit longer than the NES. Also, the controller was renewed, dubbed the Dogbone controller. The controller looked like, well, a dog bone, with rounded grips on the side, allowing for more comfortable playing experiences. Nintendo had done something very few had done. They made their console better.
Crazy how far Nintendo went in such a short amount of time. Making a movie to advertise their console, trying to integrate motion controls into the gaming market, and even making games that still hold up today, like Super Mario Bros. Or The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo, you are amazing, but oh my fucking god, did you mess up a lot later.